Sometimes video games can be the most real depiction of a place. I live in London, and as you'd expect for a capital city and a massive tourist destination, every single part of it has been documented. You can find millions of photos, videos, wander through Street View, wander through buildings, read resources that explain the tube, the city planning, the architecture, every inch of the history that made it what it is today. But if you asked me what London is like to stand in, to walk around, I wouldn't point you to any of this. I would point you to Watch Dogs Legion. Say what you want about Ubisoft games, but their world designers knock it out of the park every single time. Underneath this authoritarian coat of paint is the most honest depiction of London I've ever seen. This is London in the most uncanny way. I recognize the buildings, the streetlights, the pavement stones, and sometimes, if for a single moment, I can turn a corner and feel as if I know where I am. Video games, as opposed to pictures and videos, feel less like you captured a single moment in time, and more like they're their own place that carries on living. GTA 5 is another good example. This isn't Los Angeles, almost everything about it is different, but it gets across so well the cultural zeitgeist of its LA 2013 setting. But what about places that no longer exist? Can a video game, a simulation, bring back a place from the dead? Can it bring back a town? Let me tell you about Ember 5, an extinct Soviet village that lives on in a mod made by a single man for the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind. Okay, we have to start at the beginning, during the time of the Soviet Union. Ember 5 was initially a Russian military installation in western Kazakhstan, one of a few used to store and test weapons. Soldiers stayed there training and guarding the arms, and so they also built a small village where they could live with their families. Where there are families, there eventually are schools, playgrounds, bazaars, train stations, and so Ember 5 officially became a recognized town. We'll be following one of the children that grew up here, known only by his internet handle, Ozonspeed. From what we know, he loved this town as much as any kid could. He was in awe of the militarism, invested in the patriotism, and part of a close-knit community that'd be essential to survive in a desert. But then the Soviet Union fell, and it took Ember 5 down with it. Villages with numbered names don't tend to get remembered, and pretty much all of the traces of it disappeared. The town was officially renamed Zhem by the Kazakh government, and new people with new cultures moved in, replacing everything Ozon grew up with. So he moved on too, bitter and dejected at losing his home, and for years carried all these memories with him. Let's fast forward to 2002. Bethesda releases Morrowind, the third mainline game in their breakthrough Elder Scrolls series. You may not have heard of Morrowind, but you definitely heard of Skyrim. Well, this was 2 games before that one. Morrowind was an incredible entry to the series, and some consider it the best one. But the thing that really set it apart was the new modding scene. Alongside the game, Bethesda released all of their creation tools to the public. Everything they themselves used to make the game was available to players. They could tweak, break, change anything, and even make their own content. The players absolutely loved this. They spent weeks and months and years to this day creating new mechanics, new quests, new characters, and even formed teams together to create huge new expansion packs, and shared them with each other for free. Ozon must have picked up a copy of the game a few years later and dived headfirst into the modding scene. He had a knack for it too. He could wrangle the decade-old engine into doing things it was never intended to do. In 2006, he announces, in a few short paragraphs, his idea for the Ember 5 mod, a humble recreation of his home village in the Morrowind engine. That's not what happened. What really followed was a 17-year-long journey, thousands of hours of work, reconnected friends, a Kazakh curse, and an urban legend that is still talked about in the Morrowind community. The town of Ember 5, closer to a city in scale by now, can be seen on the Morrowind map as its own island. It's about the size of an entire expansion pack. We can swim or fly there, but the easiest way is to take a boat. After a few hours, we arrive. There's no one to greet us and the captain has no directions, so our only option is to start wandering. What we find are ruins. It's eerily silent here. The town has clearly suffered some catastrophe. Most buildings are weathered, dirty, or crumbling into rubble. The homes and commie blocks are either boarded off to us or abandoned. The few inhabitants we do run into are Gopnik bandits armed with rifles or screwdrivers and attack us on sight. There's a few of those amenities we talked about, a small playground, a bazaar, but the town is mainly dominated by military industrialism. The biggest buildings are factories, power plants, oil refineries, and a massive train station going nowhere. It's hard to know what most of this means or compare it to the real place, because there's little else to find online. Most information has been lost to time, and the Wikipedia page is bare bones. But we are lucky. We have a primary source. Ozon isn't just some reclusive artist hiding away while he works on his masterpiece. No, he's got a forum, and it's really something to read. It will be possible to catch the souls of any creature in Ember, both a monster and a person, because there was no god in the USSR, which means the souls of the inhabitants belong to no one. Sure, he posts consistent updates on the progress of the mod, but there's also a lot of this political rhetoric. Ozon has really strong beliefs and he's unwavering. My add-on development method is the most unique of all. I don't need a team, I do everything myself successfully. I make things manually, without shortcuts and other dishonest things. Ember is purely Russian, without any stupid Hollywood fantasies. I can't really speak for Russian, but this mod is incredibly Eastern European. The stupid Adidas tracksuits and caps he modeled in, the obsession with guns, the aforementioned commie blocks, as well as village homes, the furniture, the churches. Those damn bazaars I think anyone who grew up here will recognize. It's accurate, sure, but also emphasized, closer to a nostalgic memory than reality. And that includes some of Ozon's more eccentric beliefs. An ancient evil rose in the old mine because of the real curses placed on my city by several Kazakh elders. The facts are real. Soviet builders built Ember on the old Kazakh cemetery, true or not, but there were terrible rumors around the city. Ozon holds a massive grudge against Kazakhstan. Ember's relation with the locals couldn't have been too good considering it was a military installation on their land, and he still blames them for wiping the town away and replacing it with Zhem. There's a huge amount of propaganda throughout the town. Most buildings have some kind of Soviet poster or slogan printed in huge letters high above. The outskirts of the town are reinforced with concrete barricades, fences, barbed wire, and most importantly, a giant makeshift wall. There's Russian text across the middle that says, "The wall is a thin line between Ember and the dead Kazakhstan." Ozon originally planned a large questline for this mod where you fight for Ember by organizing together resistance fighters and driving out the bandits. The most interesting part is, he said the quest wouldn't end in the town taking over Kazakhstan or anything silly like that. He doesn't want to return Ember to some delusions of grand prosperity, but just to the memory he has of it as a kid. Either way, the quest in the current version of the mod is lost. All the text is broken, presumably some font issues, and so all the dialogue and books are completely unintelligible. Which I think is apt, because this seems to be Ozon's driving force, the source of all of his radical beliefs, and I doubt we would be invested in it as much as he is. This is a mission for him alone. 'Tis 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 Now, it would be unfair to talk about Ember as a project born purely out of bitterness. Despite all this, it's clear that he loves the town. The forum I mentioned before, that started off as updates for the mod, has now become a place for the past inhabitants of Ember to find each other and meet. When I saw it, I didn't believe it. I once lived in Ember 5 myself. My father served there, and when I turned 8, we left. The fact that a person is trying, at least virtually, to restore the city of my childhood, this alone commands my respect. Wander the city long enough and you'll run into a rare friendly face. The men running the small corner shops are always happy to sell you vodka or beer. A football field at the far side of town has these badly animated models playing football together. Inside one abandoned ruin, no different to any other, I found a staircase going down into a basement. It opened up to a hidden bar full of friendly characters. The mod is intentionally punishing with really unfair difficulty, but these places feel like a respite. They must have been to Ozon too when he got tired of modeling bombed out ruins in his home. Now I get that all of this is a little ridiculous. Morrowind, the 2-decade-old game where you cast fireballs and beat up polygonal critters in a cave, it doesn't fit at all. There's nothing here to build off of. He couldn't copy the art style, the models, or even the color palette. Everything had to be built from scratch. And I think that's why I like it. I think there's nobility in that. There is many ways to capture a place. You can take a photo or a video. You can do what Google did and 3D scan some famous monuments, or what Microsoft did and regenerate the entire Earth in Flight Simulator. But all these ways are static in a way. Video games tend to be different because, as I said before, they're simulations. They can live and breathe and react and change. Ozon plastered the buildings with framed images of what I can only assume is Ember. But despite being the only surviving evidence of the town, they don't feel as real as just walking around through this janky mod. The fact that he had to remake it from scratch just adds to that. There's no way for a memory to be objective, it has to be emotional. Ozon has to recreate the homes with references of his own childhood. He has to emphasize the militarism that shaped his own belief. He has to include the beer they drank and the food they ate, because that's what he remembers. I create my city with love because I still cannot believe that it is no longer alive. You remember so many things, it brings such joy. My virtual Ember is a reflection of my soul, like all Embers. The Ember 5 mod tends to be considered a funny curiosity in the Morrowind community. There's countless videos on YouTube of people exploring it, and they all kind of border on making fun of it. No one seems to take it seriously, but I do. I want to take it seriously. Let's go on a quick tangent, and I promise this is related. In 2017, Frictional Games released Soma. The story of Soma is complicated and too much to discuss here, but there's one part of it that I want to bring up. Here's the premise. Earth has been struck by a meteor that destroyed all life. The game is set in a facility at the bottom of the sea, likely the only thing that survived the blast. There's nothing to save here, no device that can turn back time or a spaceship to escape on. The last human is dead, it's over. We follow a pair of robots who will soon enough run out of power too, but before they do, they manage to hatch a plan to do one last thing. Before they died, the humans created the Ark, a computer that contains scans of the brains of the last people on Earth, and the capacity to simulate them in a fake environment. Now, this is technically meaningless. It's fake imitations of life trapped in a false reality. It's just code interacting with itself for its own amusement. But the robots choose to blast it off into space into a stable orbit, to fit it with solar panels so that it may run for as long as our sun burns. To succeed in this one last symbolic gesture. That's a noble goal and it's easy to understand, but my only question is, why did it have to be a simulation? Why not do what the Voyager did in real life, a probe we sent into space that will likely be the last thing that remains of us, filled with pictures of people, recordings of our achievements, songs of our culture? Why did it have to be what is essentially a video game? Because the developers knew that there is something special about simulations, and that potentially they're the best depiction of us. Because a hard drive full of photos is a museum, an antique, a taxidermy. But a simulation carries on living. Ember 5, the town with a numbered name, is gone. It was not remarkable, it was not significant, it was not remembered. This mod will not bring it back, and yeah, like the Ark, there is so much human nobility in this symbolic gesture. It mattered to Ozone, and now I know about it, and now you do too. The town kept right on living in his memory, and now his memory is this simulation we can all visit and experience, where it still lives on. This Ember is more real, more honest than any sun-bleached photo or grainy video could ever be. Ozone has a channel right here on YouTube, and judging by the videos he uploads, he's just getting started. He's been recreating Ember 5 in the Fallout engine, and later on in DayZ, taking everything he's learned from modding, bigger and more detailed, more alive. Morrowind was too small of a medium for him. I haven't found everything, there is too much to see here, but I'm sure I will be back again. The city should not die a second time.
I am the city. My heart is the wind corridor. The bottom of my hair is red. I have 100,000 luminous arms. Come morning, I carry industrial dust and let it settle on tree leaves. I shake the dust from those leaves and onto your coat. The modulations of my voice are noted down with thermometers and barometers. You feel me in your nostrils, on the little hairs on the back of your neck. I need you to protect me from death. I cannot perish. Look at me. I cannot end.